House of the Dragon trailer breakdown. Like a week late, but it's fine. This is the prequel series to Game of Thrones. This covers events that take place roughly, let's call it like 180-ish years before the events of Game of Thrones. So like 129 after Conquest, whereas Game of Thrones took place like late 200s, like 298 AC. Roll that beautiful dragon footage. Okay.
What is this brief mortal life?
Pause. Okay, this is Dragonstone. This is the longtime property of the Targaryen family, formerly like the westernmost limit of Velaryon territory. Back in the old days, this is before the Doom of Valyria. A previous Targaryen, Daenerys the Dreamer, had a dream that Valyria was going to be destroyed, and she convinced her family, the rest of the Targaryens, that we have to move because everything's going to be destroyed. So they left and they colonized the Dragonstone. They ended up living there. And then indeed, Valyria was destroyed, and that is why the Targaryens, formerly a kind of like middling family, royal family, ruling family from old Valyria, then became basically the only Targaryens left, certainly the only ones with dragons. Although we can get into it. There's other families out there with Valyrian lineage. The voice we are hearing, that's Corlys Velaryon, Corlys of House Velaryon. He is known as the Sea Snake, the most decorated, the most famous seafarer in the history of Westeros. He went to sea at like age 6 and then has sailed all over the known world, from Yee in the east and Lum to, the Summer Islands, on and on and on. His trips made House Velaryon super, 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 super wealthy. For a time, the most wealthy house in Westeros for a very brief time. The Velaryons are also of old Valyrian stock. They settled on this island called Driftmark there in the Narrow Sea, got rich off trade, and are a closely allied family with the Targaryens, who are just right over there in Dragonstone, a close-by island. The woman we saw, that is Princess Rhaenyra, going to be a major character in our story. Let's roll it a little more, and I'll tell you more about her.
If not the pursuit of legacy.
That is Daemon Targaryen. He is King Viserys' brother. So King Viserys is the 5th Targaryen king, coming after old King Jaehaerys, who ruled forever. That guy ruled for forever and a day. He was like the most successful king that Targaryen king that Westeros had ever had up to that point. Is heavily modeled after Constantine the Great from Byzantine Eastern Roman history. Daemon is King Viserys' brother. Viserys was kind of coming after old King Jaehaerys. Viserys was he was just kind of lazy. He just was just happy to be there. Not a bad guy, but not like super engaged with what was going on in the continent. And Daemon, seen here, was a fierce warrior, one of the most fearsome and devastating warriors on the continent at that time. He was kind of a wild guy, liked to hang out in like the bad parts of town. The woman next to him is a woman that he met in the bad parts of town. She's known as Miseria the White Worm, a former dancer and sex worker, essentially, who is very, very charismatic and kind of becomes like the de facto like spy chief of one faction of the Civil War. Oh, okay, pause. That is Otto Hightower, a very influential figure from House Hightower, a knight of House Hightower. He goes on to become Hand of the King to Jaehaerys, Viserys, and then another king, which might be a spoiler if I tell you who it is. And his daughter is Alicent Hightower, and she's kind of like the other main figure on the other side of the Civil War. So the Civil War breaks down like this. Princess Rhaenyra was let me roll it a little bit more, and then this is going to be great for Dylan to edit. There is the Red Keep.
I Rickon Stark.
Okay.
I call this Velaryon.
Keep going. Roll this. There's Viserys, King Viserys.
promise to be faithful to King Viserys and to his named
Stop.
heir.
Okay, so everything that goes on in the world of Westeros, the Song of Ice and Fire, everything bad that happens, all the drama is because of succession. Who's going to rule? Who's going to do it? Now, Viserys Targaryen, he handpicked his daughter, Princess Rhaenyra, seen here, very young, to be his successor. This was controversial because previous to this, there was an attempt in the waning days of old King Jaehaerys' reign. There was movement to place Princess Rhaenys, there's a lot of similar names here, folks, so get ready for this, Princess Rhaenys on the throne. And there was a large gathering of all the notable houses of the realm called the Great Council of 101, and her claim was cast aside. Viserys was elected by some accounts a 20-1 margin, and that consolidated the precedent that the male line would be placed over the female line in matters of succession. Here, Viserys is basically getting all of his noble vassals to agree. He's announcing, I am going to place, I want my successor to be my daughter, Princess Rhaenyra. Everyone agreed to this. And so these are various vassals, some major figures here, right? The Starks, the Baratheons, basically agreeing with the king, being like, yes, we agree. When you pass away, we will support the claim of your daughter, Rhaenyra Targaryen. That is who you chose, and we're going to let that happen. Now, the issue and what causes all the trouble is Viserys' second wife, Alicent Hightower, had a bunch of kids by Viserys, and she was certainly not eager to watch her children be disinherited. And certainly Otto Hightower, influential guy, hand of the king, finger on the levers of power for many, many years, is also not eager to see his grandchildren disinherited. So those two sides, which come to be called the greens and the blacks. The green for Alicent Hightower, because she wore a green dress one time, and everybody was like, oh, we're supporters of the Green Party. And the blacks, the black being one of the colors of the Targaryens, and that being the party of Rhaenyra Targaryen, people start to take sides about, who is going to rule Westeros. And this goes on for a number of years. Before the war actually cracks off, there are many, 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 many years of rising tensions. So I think one of the things that I'm eager to find out when the series starts is, where does the time jump happen? Are there flashbacks early in the season, or do we start with Princess Rhaenyra as a young girl and then do we jump ahead? I can't wait to find out what happens with that. There's Daemon.
Men would sooner put the realm to the torch
So
than see a woman
pause.
ascend the iron.
There is a Princess Rhaenys. They call her the Queen That Never Was because she was passed over in the Great Council, and she's very bitter about it. She would go on to marry, as I said, Corlys, Velaryon, the Sea Snake. Obviously a very powerful family that is a lot of movers and shakers with Rhaenys and Corlys. And their son, Leonor Velaryon, goes on to marry Princess Rhaenyra, which is, in some of the previous trailers, I think you see, we're seeing a party, which I assume is the wedding of Leonor Velaryon and Princess Rhaenyra. Okay, pause here. So here we see a big box being carried into a room with a lot of people in it. I'm assuming this is the Great Council of 101. So the Great Council of 101 was an unprecedented gathering, massive gathering of all the notable, influential, noble families of Westeros. They all gathered at the castle of Harrenhal, the largest castle on the continent, and voted on who was going to be the next ruler. And so I'm assuming this is what we're seeing. That's probably, if my theory is correct, that box is has all the votes in it. And you got to take care. You got to watch the votes, folks. Make sure that we're voting and make sure that nothing happens to that box. Okay. Stop.
Ugly.
Alicent Hightower. There's Alicent Hightower in her beautiful green gown talking to her husband here, King Viserys. Now, interesting thing about Alicent Hightower, her dad was taking her to King's Landing when she was a child during the reign of old King Jaehaerys, and she became a favorite of old King Jaehaerys in his waning days, as he was very, very elderly at that time, and supposedly he would mistake her for one of his children. Like, he thought that she was his daughter. He was so addled and on the way out at that time. So the Hightowers have been ingratiating themselves to the avenues of power for a long time, and they are not going to miss their moment. Now that Alicent is queen and her children are princes, she's not going to see them disinherited so that Rhaenyra can gain the throne. They're not eager to have that happen. Go ahead.
Game.
They are cooking off an egg, so that's how you get that egg to hatch. One of the ways, there's various ways, but obviously they're trying to do it this way. There is Otto Hightower. He is obviously speaking to his daughter Alicent, just coaching her up, being like, "Listen, we're gonna have to do some fucking skeezy shit if you want your kids to sit on the throne." Like some really, really gully shit. What are some of those things that happens? Well, this is not necessarily a spoiler, but King Viserys does pass away. And that news is not widely shared by Otto Hightower, Alicent Hightower, and the other people in King's Landing who are eager to see the Greens get on the throne. They kind of keep that quiet for a long time. That's just like one of the many, many grimy things that they do in order to gain the throne. Not that the Black Party is hands clean either. Go ahead and play it.
To win it.
Stop. From the left, that's probably Adam Velaryon. Then we have Corlys. Then we have Leonor, who ends up marrying Princess Rhaenyra. This is probably the wedding. Princess Rhaenys, the queen that never was. And then Laena. There's Daemon and Sop. There is Leonor and Princess Rhaenyra dancing at what I would assume is their wedding. Now, well, I won't tell you too much about it just in case it's a spoiler. Play it! Who dies? Okay, so this is at sea, right? So, and a lot of Velaryons here. Is it a spoiler if I tell you that Leonor Velaryon, who was known to not be interested in the opposite sex, is later murdered under somewhat controversial circumstances by one of his associates who is rumored to be a lover. So I'm guessing that, semi-spoiler, that is Leonor Velaryon in that coffin that is being sent down into the deep to go meet Davy Jones and whatever sailors and mariners are there at the bottom of the gullet. Pause. That handsome gentleman is Sir Criston Cole, I think. Criston Cole of House Cole. House Cole is a house of the Stormlands right on the border with Dorne, and that area is called the Dornish Marshes. And they're basically tasked with, making sure the Dornish don't invade. This is at this period of time, Dorne was not conquered. Aegon the Conqueror had come some 100+ years ago. There were various wars committed by him and his successors trying to bring Dorne to heel, but it never really happened. So Criston Cole is one of the Marcher Lords, a knight of the Marcher houses. He is Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and it was rumored that Princess Rhaenyra, when she was a younger person, had something of a crush on him. He's a good-looking guy, I get it, but kind of had a crush on him. She was very fond of him, but he rebuffed her, perhaps, and that friendship, that warmth went from warmth to bitter, bitter coldness. They later become adversaries. It is unclear what happened. And there he is with Alicent Hightower, of course, of the Greens. He becomes a major supporter of the Green Party. Oh, who's getting their ass kicked? Unclear, but it looks like Hightower armor there of the person that's getting beat up. Who could that be? My guess, it could be, it could be the person who kills Leonor, who it gets pretty roughly treated, as you would imagine. But I'm not really sure who that is. Okay. There's blood. There's Otto Hightower. There's Daemon. And there's Rhaenyra. If I had to guess, King Viserys has passed, and the Hightowers and the Greens went ahead and crowned Prince Aegon, son of Alicent Hightower, king. bypassing Princess Rhaenyra, and now they have gone to Dragonstone basically to tell her that they have done this. That's just a guess.
History does not remember blood.
And that's a dragon, folks. When the war pops off, the Greens actually have a significant advantage in terms of the symbols of power. They control King's Landing, they control the Iron Throne, they control the continent. But the thing that Princess Rhaenyra and Daemon Targaryen and that side have in their favor is they have a lot of dragons. This is Daemon Targaryen in the various caves on Dragonstone looking for the wild dragons that don't have any riders.
It remembers names.
House of the Dragon, coming this August. I'm super excited. I can't wait.